Hi, folks. I'm Gene McLoughlin. I'd like to welcome you to Old Bridge Outlook with Mayor Debbie Walker. Today we have a very special guest, Edward Thomas, who is the Grand Marshal of our Memorial Day Parade. Edward, welcome. Good to have you with us.
How are you?
Okay, very well. Edward, we're glad to have you here today. And we've got a few questions, if you don't mind answering them, and tell people a little bit about yourself. Where were you born, and when were you born, if you don't mind telling us?
I was born in Newark, New Jersey,
Okay.
in 1946.
Okay.
Joined the Army in 65.
And
I
you
was
ended up-
married when I joined.
Right.
I don't know what I was thinking, but
And you went to Fort Hancock then?
no. First you go to basic,
Okay, yeah.
learn your basic combat
Right.
information and stuff and how to handle yourself, so on and so forth. And then I was assigned to Fort Hancock to the Nike Herc missile base and to learn missiles and radar,
Yes, sir.
which before going in, electronics was what I was geared to.
Okay.
So this went along with, matter of fact, that's why I joined, to get more training in, at least that was the thought process at the time.
Yeah.
I'm not sure it worked out the way I wanted it to, but it worked out fine.
But that was Fort Hancock in those days. It was a very serious military base then, wasn't it?
Yes, yeah, it was split in two.
Right.
You had the beaches at the first half.
Yes, sir.
And then you had Fort Hancock, the second half. Our base was in the second half. There were a number of missiles in the ground, anti-aircraft missiles. That's what a Nike Herc does,
Right.
essentially. It actually could do a lot more, but... it was a dual battery. There was actually two batteries there.
But it was really meant to guard New York Harbor, right?
Well, it was actually meant to guard New York City and McGuire and Fort Dix and all the military bases.
Okay.
And it has a twofold obligation,
Right.
responsibility actually, is at cities and military bases. We were, a Nike Herc basically was for intercepting bombers up to extremely high altitudes.
Yes, sir.
That's really, and large numbers of them.
Were you around when they had missile base right over here?
Yes.
On Route
A
9?
battery.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was in that battalion.
Were you really?
Yes, there was A battery, there was Charlie 1, Charlie 2, there was Delta battery, Bravo. If you'll notice, I didn't name Bravo because it was gone by the time I got to Charlie battery and Delta battery. It blew up.
Really?
Yeah, I made the papers.
Yeah.
It was on 36 by Earl, and it blew up.
Mayor, you had mentioned that your dad and your uncle had some experience in the war too, huh?
Yeah, my father was in World War II in the Navy, and then he was with the Merchant Marines in Korea, and my grandfather was in World War I.
Oh, really?
Yes, he actually won the Cross of France and the Bronze
kidding.
Star, the Purple Heart.
So you had some experience with this.
Oh, yes. My father said the best time of his life was when he was in the Navy.
Yeah, but the best time of his life.
Yes.
Huh?
Well, God bless them
He
all.
loved
I'll tell
it. He
you.
loved the Navy. That's why
Yeah.
he joined the Merchant Marine.
Okay. Ed, if I may ask you, what was explosive ordnance disposal? What was that about?
Oh, again, that was in Korea, which
Yes,
is
sir.
where I got trained for EOD. My job, I only did half the training because the only thing they wanted me to do was to blow up the equipment, the electronic equipment we had there, in case we were getting overrun by the North Koreans.
Okay.
Right.
So I went out and set the dynamite or the shaped charges or the plastique and blew up the equipment.
But part of that was your responsibility to also guide the bombing, right? Where it would take place.
Well, basically, as I said, in the United States, it was a lot of practice because there were no bombers coming over from Russia. But if they
Yes, sir.
did, we
Yeah,
practiced
not then,
to
yeah.
handle it.
Right.
In Korea, it was the real thing. So there was a total difference.
Yes, sir.
We did see Russian bombers. We did see Russian trawlers. They landed suicide squads in South Korea. South Korea in 1968 was called it's called the Second Korean War.
Yes.
You can find that in a lot of Army documentation and so on and so forth. We got hit all over. And that's why I get combat status and can be in VFW post 7508. It was because of that year in Korea. 67, 68, 69 is Second Korean War, it was known as.
Why 68? Why do you think everything blossomed in 68 that way?
In Vietnam, they started Tet Offensive in January.
Yes, sir.
So this was China's and North Korea's way of supporting the Tet Offensive in Vietnam by starting up in Korea.
Yeah.
And so they hit us all over. They hit trains, trucks, bases.
Did they really?
They hit the presidential palace. They got to the first floor. And a lot of this stuff you don't even hear about. And I know what happened because I was there tracking them with the radar.
Sure.
So I know a lot of what's happening. And I'm also in communications with other bases in Korea about what they're putting up with. But yeah, they came at my base about 3 times. A wonderful thing is the ROK soldiers and the Green Berets always kept them from getting to me.
Really?
Yeah, I loved it.
Yeah,
Trust me.
I bet you did.
I was really happy about that. Still am today.
So it kept you away from actual combat, huh?
Yes, I did not have to fire at anybody. There were people I would like to have shot, but that was another story.
Well, can you tell us about any medals that you were awarded?
For 1968, pretty much standard. The Korean Defense Service Medal, the National Defense Medal, and the, what is my other medal? Expeditionary Medal, the Army
Medal. Yes, sir.
Expeditionary Medal.
Yes, sir.
That gives you combat status when you get that. That says,
Oh, really?
yeah, it's got the same, although you can get combat status today if you get stationed on the DMZ in Korea.
Yes, sir.
That's still a combat zone.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Yes, it's still a combat zone, and if you serve within 20 miles of the DMZ, you get combat status for a certain, and I spent time up there too. I spent a lot of time all over Korea, even though my permanent base was pretty much on Central Korea on the west coast by the Yellow Sea.
I was going to ask you about that. You did travel widely in Korea in a way, right? You went to a place, if I name it properly.
Go ahead, try it.
Daejeon, and
Uijeonbu, Daegu, Seoul, Osan, Kunsan.
So you got to all those places.
Yes.
What
yes.
was the purpose then? What were you doing then?
I was on some sort of detail. It could have been parts. It could have been training. It could have been backing up somebody doing something. I couldn't even tell you what each one was.
Yeah.
Kunsan, which is a huge air base, and so is Osan.
Yes, sir.
Pretty much that was for training. We did some interesting training there for specialized missions and things like that, because the Nike Herc can be used for a variety of other things.
Were all those areas as hot in fighting as you were originally when you went there?
Those areas?
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
There was still a lot of noise there too.
Oh,
these other
absolutely.
places.
Everywhere. If you traveled in Korea, especially at night,
Yes, sir.
the chances of engaging the enemy was high.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah, they were all over. They were in the mountains. But the only time that it quieted down a little was in the winter, December, January, February, say, because it's too cold for them to survive without making fires.
Yes, sir.
So if they're in the caves in the mountains and they make a fire, we got them.
You're pretty noticeable, huh?
There they are.
Yeah.
Okay. And then the Green Berets go in and do their thing. So that was part of what we did there. It was real. There was a lot of things that happened.
You have a very rich memory of it, though. Right now, you have a very good memory.
Oh, yeah, I don't think you forget that,
60
do you?
years away, you know.
Oh, yeah, it was a long time ago for
Yeah.
me, yes. Yes. Ooh, I don't want to get crude about this, but I don't
No.
think it. I think you remember when people are trying to take your head off.
Yeah.
Yeah, I played football and they tried to take my head off, but that was a whole different thing.
Yeah.
You know?
Do you have any buddies from those days
Pardon?
today? Do you have any friends or buddies from those days today?
No.
They've all
That's
been
an
separated,
interesting.
or
Yeah. You just lose touch.
Yeah.
I used to have friends in Newark that I've not seen, a number who have served.
Yeah.
you just, life goes on, you make new friends.
Yes,
I got
sir.
a lot of friends at the VFW who are combat veterans, Iraq, Afghanistan, Berlin. There were firefights all over the world, and they all earned combat status.
Where did you discharge from?
I discharged at Fort Lewis, Washington. Flew back to Newark.
That was 69?
Exactly.
Yes, sir.
Yes, just in time for the Super Bowl,
Okay.
actually, which the Jets won. But
Yes.
That's right.
so I flew back to Newark. That's where my wife and my daughter were.
Okay.
When I went to Korea, my wife had just had our first child.
Okay.
And 5 weeks later, I was in Korea. So I missed her first birthday and all of
really?
that. Yeah.
Yeah.
And there is no communications between the States and Korea.
Right.
It's very, I'm in a war zone in a third world country. There's not
Right.
a lot of communication.
Sure,
No, I was
no.
in communications. I was talking to the other bases.
Yes.
You know, it wasn't like MASH where they have apparently tremendous communications.
Yes. They did that.
I don't know how they did that because we couldn't do it.
Yeah. Right.
So yes, I got back to Newark to my wife and kid, and that was my firstborn. She's the one who became eventually, in one of her jobs with the federal government, she became a full bird colonel.
Really?
Yeah, and she actually spent time in Gitmo with the terrorists
Wow.
when they right after 9/11.
Right after 9/11. Yes, sir.
Yeah, yeah.
We're going to take a break. Folks, we're talking with our Grand Marshal of our parade, Ed Thomas. He is going to be discussing a little bit more about his personal life now. He just covered his military life. He's going to talk about his personal life now when he got out of the military. Stay with us.
Hi, I'm Ryan Blaney, a third-generation race car driver, and we dedicate a lot of our time to going as fast as possible. My grandpa Lou is the reason why my dad and I started racing, and I'm really proud to follow in his tracks. But when my grandpa was diagnosed with Alzheimer's, it was a very unexpected bump in the road for us. I've learned a lot on this journey with my grandpa Lou, and the memories of my grandpa will always be with me. And in our family, we're used to getting involved, and I encourage you to do the same, especially when it comes to caring for your loved ones. When I think about Alzheimer's and the impact it had on my family, I recognize that losing a race isn't such a bad day after all. It's important to notice if older family members are acting differently, experiencing problems with their memory, or having trouble with routine tasks. Talking about Alzheimer's can be really tough, but if you notice something, have a conversation with your loved one. Encourage them to see a doctor or offer to go with them. Early detection of Alzheimer's can give your family time to explore support services, make a plan for the future, and access available treatments. If you or your family are noticing changes, it could be Alzheimer's. Talk about seeing a doctor together.
If you need to do something to feel okay to drive, you're not okay to drive. Don't drive buzzed.
For decades, I've taught you everything I know. How to safely build a fire, and how to control the flames. But I can only teach wildfire prevention. Only you can prevent wildfires.
Hi, folks. I'm Gene McLoughlin. Welcome back to Old Bridge Outlook with Mayor Debbie Walker and our special guest today, Ed Thomas, who is our Grand Marshal of the Memorial Day Parade. When did you first come to Old Bridge?
I came to Old Bridge in 1972.
Okay.
I got back from California with my wife and my kid, and we settled in Old Bridge because she was from Old Bridge.
Okay.
Originally, she was actually from Cuba
Oh, really?
and came to Old Bridge in '59, actually New York City in '59, and in early '60s, they moved down to Sayrewood South.
Mm-hmm.
And I lived in Newark at the time, and
Yes, sir.
was going to school in Newark, and I came down here because I had just graduated high school,
Yes, sir.
and I met her at a graduation party in Old Bridge. And we went on a date. I took her home. She threw me under the bus. And then, which is actually what happened. And then about 2 months later, decided, oh, I wasn't such a bad guy after all.
Oh.
Even though he was from Newark.
Right.
You know, that had a taint to it, being from
Yeah,
Newark.
but yeah, sure did.
And her Marine combat stepfather, actually.
Oh, he was.
Yes.
So I'm sure he was very interested in you.
Oh, yeah, was he ever? So we started going out again, and she had moved to New York, and I was working in New York, and then we went out for 2 years. We got married down here in Old Bridge, St. Ambrose.
St. Ambrose. Yeah, I was a parishioner there for many years.
Yes. And we had the reception at what was called the Turf Club on Route 9, and is now called, I forget. It's right there.
Grand Marquis?
Yes, exactly. And actually, I will say, when my wife died, they did a tremendous job for me. They really took care of me absolutely great. Because, again, when I buried her and we had the party, which is what she wanted, we went there.
Oh, really?
Which was the party we had when we got married, 50 years earlier.
Really?
Yeah. So St. Ambrose did the high mass. We did the party there, and then I put her away.
Oh.
Well, not told. She's in my living room, actually.
Yeah, that had to be tough. That had to be a tough experience.
Yes, and we raised 5 kids in Old Bridge. All of them went to the Old Bridge school system.
Yes, sir.
Which is a really great school system. Watching these kids go to college all over the United States, I see what happened to them, and that they were advanced compared to the fellow students.
Yes, sir.
In a lot of cases, they ended up having a lot of kids. I have 25 grandchildren.
Yeah,
now.
that's you.
And we lived in Arcade Gardens for like 2 years.
Oh, did
It
you
was
really?
it was on Route 9, and then from there we bought a house, and which was the development her mother and father lived in, and that's where she essentially grew up. That's where she lived when she went to Matawan High and graduated. And then we spent 50 years together traveling, living in other places. We lived in California for about 10 months as a total. We lived in Washington, D.C. for only about 3 months. And in Boston for about 3 months, 4 months. And then I just kept working.
You were still working. You were still working then when you were doing all these things.
Yes.
Living
Yes,
all
I
these
would
places.
travel. She would watch the kids.
Yeah.
And I would go off. And that was our life. And the 5, they gave me some really great grandchildren.
Now you're back in civilian life, Ed?
Yes.
What happened then in 1969?
I ended up gathering up my family and getting a job in computers. But I had to go to computer school for 7 months, so we traveled out to California, where the school was.
Okay.
Spent 7 months there with my first daughter, and then came back, and I worked in the metropolitan area, mostly in New York City,
Really?
in computer system. At the time, a customer engineer. Throughout my career, I ended up as a systems engineer, which means you do hardware and you do software applications and operating systems.
Okay. And that was the early days, really, of computers, wasn't it?
Yeah, they were big.
Yeah.
They were big.
Yeah, they took up a whole room.
Oh, rooms.
They did.
Rooms. These things were big. And not 4K of memory was the size of a refrigerator. 4K, not meg, not gig, K was the size of a refrigerator. And all the peripherals, and So that's why it took up so much space.
I know, I remember, but in those days, my wife was secretary to the UNIVAC manager in New York.
Yes.
And the UNIVAC machine took up a whole room and a half.
Sure.
In those days.
Yeah, absolutely.
When I was dating her then, and we used to visit that.
Oh, cool.
And
Yeah,
see
no,
UNIVAC, it was huge.
I'm familiar with UNIVAC and
Yeah.
IBM and various manufacturers. I trained in various.
And you saw the early days, really, of the computer, didn't you?
Yeah.
Coming on, when
Yeah.
it really came on to take
The bleeding edge.
the bleeding edge, it sure was. What happened when you became the regional technical support engineer? What happened then?
I started traveling all over the country and all over the world.
I saw that. You went to Poland, Czechoslovakia. What happened
Yes.
there? What happened?
I loved it there. Actually, I loved the Polish people, Czechoslovakians. We got along great. It was behind the Iron Curtain.
Right.
It was
Yes.
1975.
Yeah.
Vietnam had just ended in 73 and a half, and actually our combat troops pulled out in 73 and a half. By 74 and a half is when our embassy, the famous pictures of the helicopters on the roof,
Yes,
our
sir.
embassy
We remember
was
that.
evacuated. Yes.
Yeah.
So about 75, I spent 5 weeks in Europe. 3 of those weeks were in Poland, Katowice, Brunn, Czechoslovakia, and
But that was really Cold War days when you were there.
oh yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. The State Department told me because I was in the service. I was a sergeant and I had a top secret clearance, and so they basically said my briefing before I went was keep your mouth shut.
Really?
Right. Talking to the wrong guy. So I spent 5 weeks in Europe, about 2 weeks in Vienna.
And
then
what were you doing there? Were you doing more computer work and
computer repair training. It's a long story. In order to hear all these stories, you got to come to my post, sit down with me on
Okay.
a Friday, Saturday, whatever.
Okay.
And we'll have a few drinks and we'll talk because I can go on for hours. Anybody will tell you that.
yeah? Well, you're doing well.
Yeah,
Might have to get him his own show here.
Yeah. Yeah. When did you retire?
essentially about 8.5 years ago.
Really?
About 8 years ago, I was 70. My wife had just died.
Oh, I'm sorry to hear that.
Thank you. We had been married for 50 years. And the last business, my last customer, because by the time I was 70, I had my own consulting
You
business.
did, okay.
And my last customer relocated to New Orleans and basically said, you want to come down for a while? And I was not into that at all. I was 70, I'm done. I was
Right.
done. So I retired. 2016, early part of 2016.
Why did you retire and stay in Old Bridge? You didn't consider going south or getting out of this weather?
I did consider it, but the family, a lot of it is here.
If so, you stayed here. That's understandable.
The majority of them, I must
Right.
say, there's a lot in Virginia, and there was some in North Carolina. Her and her family are now up here, and she's in medical school, actually, with 2 kids.
Wow.
Wow.
That's
Yeah,
going to be
she's
a
a phenomenal story. She went through the Old Bridge school system, this granddaughter, and went to that special school in Woodbridge, county school for science, medical and science. She lives in Old Bridge now,
Okay.
and as she goes to medical school, she's already a paramedic. She's already gone through that.
So she's done that, yeah.
She's got her master's in science and was a high school teacher at one point in time in North Carolina. So it's a real, every one of them have an interesting story. We could be here.
I was going to
for the
say,
week.
you've done well.
Oh, yeah.
done well, very well.
Every one of them are tremendous kids and have interesting stories.
Yeah.
And they all come see Pop.
Okay, did you take up any other hobbies?
Partying.
Yeah.
I-
Partying? Okay, that's a good hobby.
Singing,
Okay,
dancing.
okay.
Pretty much that's my main hobby right now, most people will tell you. And spending time with this massive family.
5 children, 25 grandchildren.
Yes.
Wow.
Of various
Yes,
ilk.
sir. Yeah.
Grandchildren. There's 25 of them. I see them all the time.
Yeah, I bet.
Not all of them.
They're all local? They live locally?
No. Some are down south. summer, I got them all over. And
sure.
I see them all the time.
Yeah, that's great.
They either come up from the south, stay with me at the house while they tour or go
Yeah.
somewhere, or or we get together for parties. They're all real interesting, and I have a great time with all the grandchildren. They're really a blast. The VA always asks me when I go. VA takes care of my health, pretty much,
Right.
90% of it. And they'll always ask a question. They ask a number of questions to make sure their veterans are not in trouble,
Yes, sir.
mentally or physically.
Yeah.
And they'll ask, what makes you happy? And I basically say, my grandchildren.
Yeah. Sure.
That's it.
Yeah.
And
all-
partying. I also mentioned that.
Which was for higher.
It's really even. So I try and bring my grandchildren into my parties.
Oh, okay.
Yes, the members of the post love them. I'm always asked, where are they? I'm like, what? They don't live with me.
Yeah.
But
But they keep in touch, which is great.
Oh, yeah.
Let me ask you one other question. I noticed you were honored with Veteran Spotlight.
Yes.
What does that mean?
The
Veteran
VA gave me an award. I was the National Veteran of the Week.
Right. Yes, sir.
That's basically what
Yeah.
I was.
The Veteran Spotlight.
Yes,
Yes,
and they
sir.
put me on their national site out of Washington, va.news.gov, and used an old picture of me because that's what they asked for. The picture that they have on the site of me is I was 22 in Korea. And some of my grandchildren can't believe I was ever that young.
I know the feeling, believe me. I have
Yeah,
grandchildren.
right?
I have grandchildren. too.
Same old. I get that. Yeah, they can't believe it. Look at Grandpa.
But it's also great for them to refer to you in that capacity, too.
Yes.
Yeah, it's great.
Yeah, it's
For the
a
grandkids
blast.
to take that pride in you.
Yes.
That's a
Yes.
great thing. How do you feel about being the Grand Marshal of the parade?
Ask me that after I was the Grand Marshal. Because I have to give a speech.
That's right.
Yeah, it seems to me, though, Ed, if I may say so, you're very articulate. I don't think you'll have trouble making your speech.
As long as people don't mind sitting there or standing for 2 hours, I can go on and on.
Well, that's okay. It's
We should
okay.
remind everybody the Memorial Day Parade is Monday, May 27th at 9 a.m.
Is the observance. Yeah, I'm going to one of those.
The parade
Down
has
my
the-
way, I'm going to one.
And I'm in it in a convertible.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm
Right.
going to- yes.
Yeah. Cool. Now,
Yes.
my homework. Thank God I'm wearing a hat.
Yeah. And the other thing we just touched on, you touched on a little bit. You now volunteer at the post, at Post 7508 in Old Bridge.
Well, as part of my duties there, yeah, I'm the service officer and I'm also in the honor guard, which means I go to a lot of funerals.
Funerals, I was just going to say, unfortunately, yeah.
Yeah, and I go to various ceremonies, one of which I have to go to tonight. Actually, it's held in Edison. It's a ceremony remembering all the veterans, the VFW veterans that died this year.
Yes.
So we have a ceremony at the district, actually.
Right, right.
It's not everywhere, but the district, District 8.
We have those kind of things where I am too. We have the same kind of thing with VFWs. The one thing you were also doing though is benefits and housing and medical care. You
That's
help them
part of
with-
my job.
That's part of your job.
I don't do it well. There's another member at the state level, Bob Weiss, who my job, I say, is to, because I'm busy dancing, singing, and drinking.
Yes.
So when they come to me, we help veterans. That's what we're there
yeah.
for.
Right.
We're there to help combat veterans. Whatever the issues are, we try and help.
Right.
And so my job is giving Bob Weiss's phone number because he knows what he's doing. Matter of fact, he's in Old Bridge.
Well, I know Bob Weiss very well.
Oh, you do?
Yeah,
Yes,
he was.
my next door
He was
neighbor.
Oh, really?
He was a Marine Corps,
Yes.
and
Oh,
yeah,
yeah.
we did a lot of work with Bob.
Yes.
Different programs and different events.
He does great. He's,
Oh, yeah, he's a great guy,
And he's
yeah.
actually handling something for me now.
Is he really?
Yep. And yeah, so I just give them Bob's number. Here's his card. Call Bob.
That's important.
Yeah, because he knows what he's doing.
Yeah. Well, that's okay. You
Yeah.
can give direction.
If you want a beer, you can come to me.
Yeah.
I do participate in a lot of events at the
Yeah,
post.
say hello to Bob for us. He's a great guy.
Yeah, he is.
He really
Oh,
is.
absolutely.
Yeah, we knew Bob for a lot of years. We did a lot of programs with him.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Very cool.
Bob was
yes.
very active.
Oh, yeah, no, he is. Yes, and he does a lot for veterans. He does a lot.
Yeah.
Because combat veterans aren't always. They need a lot of pills. Sorry to say, it's not the most prettiest vocation, actually.
But Ed, want to thank you for coming in.
No, you're welcome.
And we appreciate your service.
Thank
we
you very much.
congratulate
Thank
you
you
for
very
your
much
service.
for having me, and thank
I'm
you
gonna
for
see you at the
making me
post.
the. Huh?
I'm going to come visit you at the
Oh
post.
yes, please. You're welcome all the time. Welcome to ceremonies, any of the parties we have. Just drop by. Like Mayor Owen used to come by with his children, and friends of his on occasion, and we used to go to his
Who made Mayor Henry?
Henry Owen.
Mayor Henry.
Henry Owen.
Owen Henry.
Owen Henry.
Owen
Hi.
Henry. You got it right. Owen Henry. Yeah.
Senior thing is starting to show.
Yeah. Hey,
It's not all there.
you're doing a
What
great
God.
job, though. Thanks for coming in, really.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
We're looking forward
Thank
to
you for
seeing
having
you.
See you
me.
at the parade.
Oh yes, I'll be there.
Fantastic show. We're going to give you back and have your own show. You know?
I think you're going to get pushed out, Gene.
Yeah, I think so. I think so. And folks, this has been Old Bridge Outlook this time. Our special guest has been Edward Thomas. As you can see, he's not only a great soldier, but he's a great entertainer. And we'll see you next time. But take care.